What job did you work at that was so bad, you quit on the same day you were hired? Worked at a recycling plant for medical supplies. My job was to get inside the compressing machines and clean them. The machines were filled with blood needles. It was absolutely disgusting. Plus the place was infested with rats. That's so horrifying. That's literally horrifying. I'm a phlebotomist and regularly utilize sharp spins for used needles and bloody supplies. I always wondered what the process was like after the sharp spin left our facility. Yeah, if you got poked you had to immediately go to the hospital. Probably the worst part was they didn't give me the full information before I started. I thought it was just regular residential trash. Didn't realize it was medical stuff until I stepped into the machine. Stepping into machines. I hope it was locked out. Yeah, it was locked out. But still felt weird. In the back of my mind I was always like, damn, what if someone cuts this thing on while I'm inside? Retrieving used form work. 10 guys throwing 20 kilograms pieces of nail-infested timber down from 5 floors up. My job was to dodge the falling bits of timber and avoid stepping on rusty nails while I did it for 10 hours a day. No first aid guy on site, got a nail through each foot on my first day, which I disinfected and went back to work. When I was 16 I got a job at KFC. It was disgusting. The kitchen was dirty and people were rude AF. They had me making the coleslaw. It came in separate bags. I eat cabbage in single huge bag, carrots, mayo. I was mixing it by hand in a huge vat thing. Found a cockroach in there. Told the manager and he replied that it was normal. I quit then and there. Mind you, this was when I was 16 and I'm 35 now. Things can change, but who knows. A vacuum cleaner sales job. They explained that I'd have to go to people's houses and offer to clean one room for them with the vacuum and I'd get paid if during my vacuum demo, they bought a vacuum. No. I didn't want to do it. Though, I liked this vacuum cleaner. An ex of mine worked for Kirby. He was expected to be in a person's house for 2 hours to sell them this goddamn vacuum. I wouldn't want a salesman in my house for 10 minutes. When I was 14 I got a job at one of the few fast food places in town that hired kids under 16. I went to orientation, where they explained the positions different age groups could fill. My job would be to take people's orders out to their cars. I wasn't allowed to touch money or work the fryer. I showed up on the first day and was told my whole shift would be on the fryer. I told them I was 14 and not allowed to, plus I hadn't been trained on it. The guy basically said tough shit and tried to hand me a hairnet. I just left. I'm glad you left. Inexperienced people should be nowhere near hot, bubbling oil. Not only his own safety, but there are also a lot of regulations in food service about how food must be handled before/after it is cooked. An untrained employee could unwittingly give dozens of people food poisoning in a single shift. This guy absolutely did the responsible thing, making up for the irresponsible management. McDonald's when I was 16. Thrown straight into work the grill during a very busy lunchtime. Kept getting shouted at because I was making mistakes. Then after they gave me a brush that was the size of a toothbrush and told me to clean the grill. I just went in the back, picked up my bag and went home. Mine is McDonald's when I was 20. Thrown into the drive-thru with no training. Lasted 3 hours. Took my free lunch and went home. Some help desk job. Recruiter line me. You gotta be careful with them. I've been sent into some bogus interviews because a recruiter just wanted to meet his quota. Another tip an old guy told me was to always send your resume as PDF. Recruiters will edit your resume without your asking just to try and get you into an unqualified interview, and it'll set your ass up for failure. And always take a hard copy of your resume to the interview. I once had a recruiter helpfully add a bunch of Java experience to my resume. I hate Java. I was very confused when I realized I was being interviewed for a Java programmer position. At least the interviewer and I had a good laugh when we compared my resume to the one the recruiter sent. I was working at a restaurant. 1. A co-worker told me the boss asked him if he would sell him his passport. 2. Different co-worker said the boss asked him to be a guarantor in a totally blank passport application. 3. Some customers came up to me to say they overheard some men on the patio talking about trafficking people. Like, in the way that they were discussing plans to do it. Unbeknownst to them, one of these men was the owner. Owner was from Albania, by the way. Not trying to generalize, but they are known to be one of the human trafficking hotspots. I quit that day and called the police. Did they find anything? I never heard back from the authorities. But the guy is a scumbag. Sadly, I see he has opened up another restaurant since, so I guess he remains a free man. Sometimes law enforcement agencies will let people operate until they can build a solid case. I was 18 and it was as a waitress for a fancy retirement home, where they made meals to order for the residents who all ate in a communal facility. Somehow we were responsible for knowing a person's dietary restrictions, but there was no list of people with dietary restrictions as it's protected health info. We were just supposed to figure it out. For example, if grandma was allergic to peanuts, forgot and ordered a dish with peanuts, we were held responsible. The men keep smacking my butt with their napkins and making inappropriate comments, which was fine with management because they were old/senile. My first shift was supposed to be covering breakfast, but because so many people quit mid-shift it became a mandated double. I lasted 1 day. Of the 15 people I trained with, only one made it 2 weeks. And I bet they were all thinking, young people are so lazy these days. Got a job at a sawmill right out of high school. It was probably opened in the 40s, dangerous as hell. First day, one of the guys that worked there was bragging about how good the owner was to work for, held up his 2-fingered hand, touched the 2 nubs one at a time and said, "I got $500 each when that happened." About an hour and I went to my car under the auspices of grabbing my thermos. Left and never went back. I applied for a job online titled Feeding Baby Pigs. I got a call from a man and he gave me a vague description of the job and said I could come to the pig barn and have a chat about it. So I showed up and he continues to talk about it in a way that gave me a weird vibe. He seemed very desperate to hire somebody. He ran it by me that occasionally a piglet may need to be put down, so I figured that's what the elephant in the room was. I show up my first day at 7 a.m. and I enter the barn. You are required to shower off before you enter due to human swine disease contraction. After that I enter and the first thing I smell is the strongest odor of ammonia I have ever smelled. The place was like prison cells of 500-pound pigs and my job was to feed them. I was instructed to shock them with a shocking stick if they were lying down and wouldn't get up to eat. Which I didn't like. Sometimes you had to repeatedly do it and it felt cruel. I continue to follow around this woman who is sort of training me. I'm noticing piles of dead and blackened piglets in the aisleways. I guess it's common for the mothers to accidentally roll on them and squish them because they are so massive. I mentioned the overpowering smell of ammonia, but what was even worse was the amount of flies in the place. And they were so aggressive. You could barely take a breath without literally breathing in a fly, and if you did it was a polluted breath of pure ammonia. I'm continuing the tour and still pretty much only feeding massive 500-pound pigs. At the end of our feeding round we finally get to the place where the piglets are. There are slightly bigger pens with mothers nursing very small newborn-like piglets. There's a couple pens with a mother specifically for feeding runts from other pens that weren't strong enough to fight for milk. What I learned was if the runts in these pens still show no signs of being able to nurse, we need to put them down. The method of putting these newborn piglets down is to grab them by their hind legs and basically throw them on the cement floor so that the back of their head hits first. I asked my trainer how often this needs to be done, because I was told it was only seldom, and she said it's a daily occurrence. I told her right then that I don't have it in me to do that, let alone every day, and that I would not be able to sleep at night if I did this for a living. I said I don't see myself pursuing this and don't want to waste anybody's time. I didn't mention all the other stuff to her. I used the baby pig killing as a point to get me out of there. I was only in there for 2 or 3 hours, but when I got home I had a cough and sore throat for the rest of the day from the ammonia. By far the worst job I ever had. I grew up on a pig farm because my dad owns one. It's the reason I've been vegan since I was 14. I came here to share a very similar story, not mine but my mom's. Her first job was at our local Wildlife Discover Museum here in my city. They have a year-round exhibit showing the stages of embryos, literally eggs in incubators at different development stages, and every day new chicks hatch in the hatching section of the exhibit. Her job was to get rid of the baby chicks and move the eggs up a section. Get rid of the chicks meant grabbing them by the feet and slamming their heads against the countertop. She said the guy training her was having way too much fun with it. She quit before she started. What was your worst job that you quit the first day? Leave a comment. And subscribe to this channel if you wanna see more same videos.